Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question 149, 2017, standing to my name. The question is directed to the Honourable Acting Prime Minister, Attorney General and Minister for Economy, Public Enterprises, Civil Service and Communications. Fiji's debt level is pegged at about $5 billion by this coming July. The head of the World Bank office in Suva is saying that it is manageable and reasonable. Can the Minister explain in layman's terms what it means regarding our reserves, borrowing and investments? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I give the floor to the Honourable Attorney General, Minister for Economy, Public Enterprises, Civil Service and Communications.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we welcome the statement by the World Bank resident representative who made these comments in one of the local dailies. Madam Speaker, just by way of background information also, the World Bank is opening its first regional office in Suva. They have taken up the space on top of the new FNPF building. We understand by May next year they'll have at least 25 staff and they'll have at least 15 of their staff coming in from Sydney, so they're relocating some of their staff from Sydney to Suva, which of course enhances the hub status of Fiji and indeed also enhances the financial capacity of Fiji as a premier destination for international organizations to become based in Fiji. Madam Speaker, regarding the debt to GDP ratio that has been discussed, Madam Speaker, as the World Bank representative did highlight, the debt situation in Fiji is very manageable. In fact, the debt to GDP ratio in Fiji has significantly decreased, and I will give you some statistics around that. Government's stated policy has always been that we are prudent with our the public finances, contrary, of course, to much of the misinformation and lack of understanding, particularly from the other side of the House. The fact is, Madam Speaker, that one of the things that has actually happened both under the Bainimarama government and now the Fiji First government is that we have transformed government's overall expenditure mix, or the proportion of operating and capital expenditure to the total budget. Essentially, as we all know, that there are two types of expenses even a household has. One is your day-to-day running of your house, and the other one is your capital expenditure to build things. Prior to 2006, Madam Speaker, the government operating to capital expenditure mix was 83 to 17. In other words, 83% of the money that government spent went into operating the government, day-to-day running, which essentially did not have much to show for the following year. Only 17% went into capital expenditure. The trajectory, Madam Speaker, of course, currently stands at 60-40. In other words, 40% of the money the government spends actually goes into capital expenditure. And this is why also when you actually invest in your asset base, you're also creating an opportunity for more creation of wealth. This is what international agencies do look at, where you're actually spending the money. If the money is being spent in an area that will increase your productive capacity of the country, then obviously it's money well spent. Madam Speaker, and of course, on the other hand, we have specifically targeted those spends. We have overall, as also been seen on the other side of the equation, we have reduced our operating costs too. It's not just changing the percentage, but also a reduction of the operating expenditure. On a nominal basis, government debt has increased over the past few years, but as a percentage of the GDP, or gross domestic product, and this is where we need to focus our attention on, debt has consistently fallen across the years and is expected to reduce to 45% by the end of this financial year. When the Bainimarama government came to office in 2007, Fiji's debt to GDP ratio was around 52%. As at the end of April 2017, Madam Speaker, the debt ratio stands at 44%. Our medium target is to keep this ratio below 50%, Madam Speaker. If you do look at comparable countries like Mauritius, debt to GDP ratio is about 63 to 64%. It's in excess of 60% in any case. Countries like even Samoa, their debt to GDP ratio is higher than Fiji. We have other countries, for example, that has a lower debt to GDP ratio, like for example Papua New Guinea. They're in their 30s. But Papua New Guinea, on the flip side of it, has enormous pressures on the foreign reserves. And that I'll also come to later in respect of our foreign reserves. Madam Speaker, Fiji has a clean record in relation to all its debt obligations. Majority debt, Madam Speaker, this is the other important issue, which is what people look at the sustainability of the debts, is your level of foreign exposure, your foreign reserve exposure, foreign currency exposure. So if you are borrowing a lot more from overseas, then you have an exposure, high exposure to foreign currency fluctuations. But if your debt is more skewed towards local debt, then of course your exposure is more in Fijian dollars. And currently we have a 70-30 mix. So 70% of our debt is actually from onshore and 30% is from offshore, plus or minus 5% either way, which is actually sustainable. The tenor of debts locally in Fiji is about is in 20 years. And as announced earlier on, Madam Speaker, we have been working with the Commonwealth Secretariat to actually look at how we can bundle together many of these T-bills that have been issued over a period of time, both by this government and the previous governments, and how we can consolidate it to actually get into secondary market trading. This Fijian market has actually not been susceptible to secondary trading, and which we need to get into secondary trading, which will actually boost our footprint. Of course, Madam Speaker, as you know, that we also borrowed $200 million US in 2015 through the global bond issue. We were in fact oversubscribed. In other words, there's something like $600 million worth of people who wanted to come in, buy our bonds. But of course, we kept it at $200 million. In fact, it was a $250 million exposure. We paid off $50 million, and $200 million was raised in the market. So, Madam Speaker, Fiji's total outstanding debt, you don't understand that. Fiji's total outstanding debt at the end of April, Madam Speaker, stands at $4.5 billion. This is why these are the kind of people actually were in the previous government, and that's what we inherited. Fiji's total outstanding debt at the end of April, Madam Speaker, stands at $4.5 billion, of which $1.3 billion is external loans and $3.2 billion is domestic loans. This demonstrates the fact, Madam Speaker, or the point that I made, that the nominal value of debt has increased. However, which they don't understand, the debt to GDP ratio has declined. From a debt management perspective, the debt indicators show that Fiji's overall debt portfolio is managed in a prudent manner. The debt mix, as I said, is 70-30, plus or minus 5%, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other point that is very important is foreign reserves. Now, foreign reserves at the end of April 2017 is around $2.05 billion, sufficient to cover 5.5 months of imports and of course through the reserves. This is way above the international benchmark of 4 months of import cover that the Reserve Bank follows. So the international benchmark of 4 months, you should have at least 4 months. In 2004 and 2005, Madam Speaker, when people like them were in government, our foreign reserves was only $500 million. Today it stands in excess of $2 billion, Madam Speaker, and they had only 2 months worth of import capacity. The good news, Madam Speaker, is that our reserves has risen to an all-time high of $2.242 billion this month, equivalent to 6.6 months of imports. Unprecedented. The figures speak for themselves. So, Madam Speaker, you see, the fact of the matter is, they don't understand this. So even when we do go out, they're now saying foreign reserves are not important. What a pathetic response. What a pathetic response. Madam Speaker, the fact of the matter is this. Even when you have companies like Fiji Airways, for example, when they go and invest in the A330s, and when they do as an entity, for example, borrow from offshore banks, what the banks also look at is the foreign reserves of a country. If the foreign reserves of a country is in a good position, it also means that entities such as those and other state-owned enterprises or even FNPF, they do want to borrow, they do want to invest. The interest rates are very, very competitive and very, very attractive. These things actually give what you call a good health bill to the country itself. And this is why you don't have third-party validation by people like from the World Bank to say that Fiji is in a manageable position, that debt sustainability is good. The only people who think it is not are those people who have absolutely no knowledge about it. Madam Speaker, our debt forecast is presented in the 2016-17 budget is around $4.9 billion by the end of the financial year. It is very likely that by the end of financial year 2016, debt stock will be much lower than the budget projection, mainly underpinned by a positive fiscal outturn, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, assessing from the 10 years fiscal performance, our revenue has increased. Also, that they don't know about revenue. Our revenue has increased from $1.4 billion in 2006 when he was in government to over 3 billion in 2017. More than twofold increase, Madam Speaker. More than twofold increase. Similarly, our nominal GDP has almost doubled to $10.6 billion in 2017. Madam Speaker, we are in a very positive situation and we continue to build upon that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honorable Samuel Bonibalu. First up.
Supplementary question. Thank you, Madam Speaker. According to the World Bank, Madam Speaker, they mentioned that there is nothing to be alarmed about that 5 billion. Can you elaborate further on that? Thank you.
That's where you could, Honorable Bonibalu, repeat his question, please.
I'd like to repeat the question, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. According to the World Bank office in Suva, there is nothing to be alarmed about this $5 billion. Can you further elaborate about that? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
See, Madam Speaker, again, thank you, Honorable Bonibalu, for this question. The figures that I've just highlighted goes to demonstrate that there is absolutely nothing to be alarmed about. Every country knows we are a post-colonial country. We were colonized. If you look at the history of all colonial countries, Madam Speaker, right from the Ratu Mara government days, the Rambuka government, the Mahendra Chaudhry government, the Garase government, every single government in Fiji has run a deficit except probably 3 times in our history where we had a surplus. And they were actually aberrations. Not the norm, but they were aberrations. If you look at all developing countries in the world, they run deficits. The question is, how do you manage your deficit? The question is, what is the percentage of debt to GDP ratio? That's what they don't understand, and that's what we're trying to educate them about. They simply look at figures, they go, oh, they don't understand that. As the example that I used, a country like Mauritius decided to actually borrow very heavily, invest in infrastructure, build 4-lane roads, build IT parks to be able to service the African continent. And today the debt to GDP ratio is higher than 60%, but the productive capacity of that country has increased significantly. In the same way, if we are going to build roads into parts of Fiji, Naitasiri, Singotoka Valley, Nambuwalu, Buddha Bay, etc., if we are going to do that, we are actually enhancing the productive capacity of our country. People who weren't able to access markets now are able to access markets a lot quicker, a lot more easily, without having a high attrition rate as far as the produce is concerned. If we are able to connect electricity to people who sell fish by the roadside, but unfortunately they don't have access to refrigeration, and they have to either eat the fish or the fish rots, or sell it at half the price. If they get access to refrigeration, they can chill the fish in the morning, bring it out, throw water on it, sell it to you as fresh fish. The value of their income levels goes up. That is what we are doing, and that is what we have to do. And in order to do that, you need to be able to borrow money. But the point is, when you do borrow money, you need to ensure that the money goes in the right places. And your debt to GDP ratio goes down. At the same time, you have to ensure that your revenue, Madam Speaker, increases. And the revenue in Fiji has increased 3-fold compared to 2006. Our total revenue is $3.1 billion today. Before it was 1.2 etc. billion dollars. So we have also, Madam Speaker, increased our productivity capacity. Our GDP value has increased, and therefore our operating savings has also increased, therefore reducing our need to borrow as much as they used to do before. So even though the debt in nominal terms was lower before than what it is now, as a percentage of GDP, it was about 55%. That's what they don't understand. They are looking at the nominal figures. So the fact of the matter is that whilst the nominal debt may be going this way, GDP, as a percent of GDP, is coming down. Very simple.
Thank you. I give the Honorable William Naboko the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a few pointers, Madam Speaker. In 2013, the burden per capita was $4.4 thousand. If you use 5 billion and 900,000 people, it has now increased to 5.5 per person. So that to us is a more meaningful way of measuring our debts, because, Madam Speaker, GDP can be easily wiped out. It can grow, but it can be wiped out by 25%, and the ratio could change quite dramatically, and thus endanger this country. Our debt, Madam Speaker, in our opinion, is unmanageable, because GDP is not the right way of measuring the relationship between the two. I wonder if the Honourable Minister can ask World Bank, given our vulnerabilities to the elements, what is a better way of measuring the relativity between debts and the revenue capacity of a country? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. From what I understand in the question, he's asking himself to ask the World Bank. So maybe you can request the World Bank to answer that question. You can read it down.
Madam Speaker,
Madam
Speaker, the World Bank has actually taken account of all these factors. It doesn't have such convoluted analysis also, because, Madam Speaker, the reality again is that you don't expect a World Bank person to make such a statement in such a frivolous manner. It is not a frivolous manner. In fact, it's very rare for organizations such as the World Bank and IMF to make actual calls on the economies of individual countries in such a public manner. It's a very rare thing. So the fact of the matter is that here you have the head of the World Bank, who will be heading the regional office in Fiji, to make such a comment. Is that in itself means that these people have gone through the loopholes, through the thresholds, the loops, etc., jumped through them all to be able to make such a statement. They don't make these things lightly. Just because they don't accept it doesn't mean make it right. So the reality, Madam Speaker, is by all standards, international standards, if you look at central banks, if you look at in multilateral development banks, we actually are on a very good footing. Of course, as we highlighted in this House, that we can be vulnerable to climatic events. It's not just Fiji. Many countries can be vulnerable to not just climatic events, they can be vulnerable to cyclones, they can be vulnerable to earthquakes, they can be vulnerable to tsunamis, they can be vulnerable to cold blizzards. But the reality, Madam Speaker, is that for you to be able to ensure that you have strong footing and foundation in the economy, you need to build the capacity. You need to build the capacity. Miami, Madam Speaker, has hundreds of millions of dollars worth of losses because of encroaching waters every year. But because the economy has the capacity, they are able to weather it. In the same way, you have a massive earthquake in Christchurch. Billions of dollars was lost. Huge insurance claims paid out. But does it actually affect New Zealand overall? No, because it has got a strong footing. The fundamentals are right. They have invested over the past 50, 60, 70 years. So in the same way, if Fiji needs to invest in its infrastructure, we need to get a strong footing. We need to get the fundamentals right. We don't just live up till next year. They're just living up to the elections. That's the point. We, as any government, Madam Speaker, any responsible government, should not only think about the term of its government. It should think about 20, 30 years down the track. In the same way, for example, Madam Speaker, when we did this 4-lane road that the Honourable Minister for Infrastructure spoke about, Honourable Prem Singh asked about, we are actually putting our electrical cables underground. We are moving the pipes and putting them on the side of the road. Yes, you may argue and say, well, why are you doing it now? It means that it costs you $20 million more just to shift the electrical cables on the side. But guess what? Those electrical cables won't ever come down from a cyclone. So we're building for the future. That is a good spend. It may be an upfront spend now, but it is a good spend. Taking the water pipes out there, putting them on the side, it's an upfront spend, but for the future. We have actually put water pipes now that the Water Authority was going to put in 3 years' time, because the capacity requirements has increased. The demand has increased for Nandi. So rather than doing it 3 years down the track, we're doing it now whilst we're building the road. You see, this is what you call smart spending. And Madam Speaker, that is obviously something lost on the other side.
Thank you. I give the floor to the Honourable Noikula.
Madam Speaker, Mr. Melgard, the World Bank representative who said that statement that Fiji's debt is manageable, also made a very important caveat. in which he said that you must have a national development plan for obvious reasons, because it allows the lenders to monitor how money is being used properly and not being abused. So could the Honourable Minister tell us when this national development plan can be ready on table here?
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Member for his international development plan. We have, as you know, there's been no national development plan since 1987. The Alliance government had national development plans. That was thrown out the window, 14th May 1987. Since then, we have not had one. We are the ones who now decided to have a development plan. There has been some delays after Cyclone Winston. I have answered this question. Honourable Randrondro had asked this question, and I said that we've already gone out. If they read the papers, in particular Fiji Sun, they would understand that we put out public notices on that. We put it out on the radio, in particular on the rural radio stations, and we've already had the second round of public consultation. We're going through them, and a draft will also be done. We are currently using organizations such as the World Bank, organizations such as the World Research Institute to help us to, for example, climate sensitize our development plan. We need to be aware of what will happen, for example, to islands like Taveuni, to islands like Ovalau, to Kandavu and various other low-lying areas in Fiji. What will we need to do in 20 years' time? I know they don't think that far, but 20 years down the line. We have a demographic. 69.4% of our population currently, Madam Speaker, is below the age of 40. In 20 or 30 years' time, Madam Speaker, go to the Bureau of Statistics, you'll get it. If you, Madam Speaker, in 20 or 30 years' time, these people who are below the age of 40 will become actually in the upper category of the age. Japan, Madam Speaker, for example, has a super aging population. They spend a third of the entire budget spend on the elderly because they have a super aging population. They are living much longer. They obviously need other services for them. In the same way, Madam Speaker, our budget spend, for example, policies on retirement age, etc., is targeted towards helping those people who are in the 70% percentile category of our demographic. That's where the focus is. Of course, we are not neglecting the upper 30%, but the huge focus needs to be on the 70%. So we are actually getting the development plan is currently being worked upon to be able to then roll it out to members of the public. And also, quite rightly, as the World Bank person did say, we also want to roll it out to our development partners, so they know exactly what we're doing, what our target focus is, because also it's helpful for them to be able to plan any aid that they may want to give or any development partnerships they want to develop, so they know what we're going to do in 4, 5, 10, 15 years' time. Thank you.
Thank you. You will note, honourable members, that I'm allowing 4 supplementary questions today because we have good time. So the last question is from the Honourable Biman Prasad.
Thank you, Speaker. Obviously, the Honourable Attorney General says more than he needs to say to explain things, but let me ask the question. What is the total projected debt repayment, interest plus principal, for 2016 and 17, and what percentage of revenue will it be?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have the figures here with me. You can ask me that question as a written question, I can give it to you.
Thank you. Can you ask as a written question, and therefore that's, you can ask a written question, therefore I will give the last question to the Honourable Asir Randon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Listen. Listen to the question. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question that I'd like to Honourable Attorney General is in terms of more clarity and more layman's term, when are you expecting to pay off this $5 billion debt? And does this mean an increase in tax, especially with the budget for 2017-2018 coming around the corner?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to answer this question because it also helps me to educate the other side. The debt is not like sitting there as $5 billion. This debt, Madam Speaker, is an accumulation of the total exposure of debts. So there are debts that were incurred by the SVT government, there are debts that were incurred by the Chaudhry government, there are debts that were incurred by the Garase government, There are debts that were incurred by the Bainimarama government. There are debts that are being incurred by the Fiji First government. I mean, how preposterous they are to say, oh, the debts were incurred by the SVT government. Of course they were. You have a 20-year loan. You have a 30-year loan. That's how debts are given out. Don't you understand some basic things? You go and take out a house loan and you get a 20-year loan, a 25-year loan. You can't say that that just came about yesterday. We accept the responsibility. All governments has to accept the responsibility. For example, when the decree-led government from 87 to 92, when they came into power, they had to pay the debts that were incurred by the alliance government. So they also incurred debts. So when the next government came in, which is the SVT government, they had to pay the debts for the alliance government, the decree-led government, and the SVT government. Then, when the Chaudhry government came in, they had to pay then the debt for all those other 3 or 4 governments for the 1 year, short year that unfortunately that they were in. And then, when they left and the Garase government came in, they had to pay, they also, Garase government, paid the interest payments and the principal for debts incurred by the previous government. That's the responsibility of any government. For them to say that what I'm actually pointing out to them, say, oh no, they don't understand that. And they have the audacity to come and ask about debt. We have presented in the budget every year. They don't read the budget estimates. At the back of the budget estimates, it gives you a list of all the debts that have been incurred. The interest payments, the principal payments, when it's maturing, when it started, it's all there. It's not like we got $5 billion, oh let's go look for money and pay the $5 billion. Doesn't work that way. That's what they think. It's such a preposterous situation. And they want to be the alternative government. They want to be the alternative government. They don't even know about how debt works.